Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Cozy Mystery Mingle. Very excited because we have Kirsten Weiss with us today.
Hey,
Did I say that right?
you
Weiss?
said it perfectly.
Okay, great. Do you get Kristen a lot?
I get Kirsten Weiss, Kristen Weiss, Kristen Weiss. So thank you. You just nailed it.
Yeah. Well, my best friend is named Kirsten, and she's always like, why do people keep calling me Kirsten? She's like, I don't understand where this is coming. She's like, it's a new trend that's come out like in the last couple of years. So let's tell us a little bit about you and like where you're at and everything else.
So my name is Kirsten Weiss. I live in Colorado Springs, though I grew up in California. So a lot of my writing is set in California. I worked overseas for about 30 years doing this weird thing called microcredit. And when I got back to the States, I found I was very difficult to hire, or it was hard for me to get a job. So after floundering around a bit, I turned to mystery writing, which is something I'd wanted to do since I was a kid, and picked up my first Nancy Drew. And slowly I built a business out of it, and now I'm doing it full time.
Very cool. And so let's talk about your latest book, The Cannoli Caper, which is book 10 and the perfectly proper paranormal museum mystery. I did it.
Yeah, I kind of wish my publisher would have talked me out of that name for the series.
I love it. It's very unique, and it's not like one of those rhymey ones. So I think it's great.
Oh, thanks. It's just kind of a mouthful.
It is. But you feel very accomplished once you've said it.
Yes.
But tell us about the book and who gets murdered.
Well, yeah, it's book 10. I mean, the perfectly proper paranormal museum series is set around a paranormal museum, which is anchored to a imaginary small town in Central California. And throughout the series, I've been talking about Maddie Kozlowski, who runs the museum. She has all these very accomplished siblings, and her sister is an opera singer in Europe, and she's engaged to a count. And so there's always this stuff like she's hearing about the engagement and the count, and she's kind of rolling her eyes. Yeah. And so I went to Sicily last year, and I was actually working on another book in a different series, in my Wits End Mysteries. And I realized I had so much material that I needed another little book. So I thought, well, if her sister's marrying an Italian count, why not put it in Sicily? And I bring Maddie and her mother to Sicily for the wedding, which has some challenges.
Yeah, so this is a destination vacation book.
Yes, which again, it was kind of weird because the Paranormal Museum is normally just anchored to this little town, but now I've taken her out of her element and put her into Sicily, which is just gorgeous and has so much wonderful food and is so interesting. And it has an interesting paranormal history too. There are Medusa is said to have come from Sicily. The Cyclops from Odysseus is said to have come from Sicily. They've got some really good stories about, murder and violence, and they even have a UFO history in Sicily. So wow. So it turned out being a really great place to have her wander around and explore. And as they're getting ready for the sister's wedding and all these mysterious things are happening, and try to figure out what's going on.
All right. So that's the big one. So this is the first book that in this series that you've gone away from the normal town, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so if someone's jumping in and they just want to go ahead and start reading about this book in book 10 without reading anything before, what should they know going into this book?
Well, I mean, they should know I think it's mostly explained. I mean, she's going to a wedding. It's her sister's wedding. She's got this relationship where she's feeling a little insecure. She's always felt a little insecure because she's running a paranormal museum and her sister's an opera singer and her brother works for the State Department. Yeah, I think it's really more about family dynamics than anything else. So I don't know if she needs that much background. I think most of it's just there. I think you could pick it up and just read it. Of course, it's fun if you have a better understanding of the characters and the dynamics before, probably, and pick up one of the earlier books. But you don't have to.
Yeah, it's probably easier because they're in a new location.
Yeah. So there's some background stuff with her ex-boyfriend shows up, and there's some drama there. But again, I don't think a reader needs to know all the history before picking up the book. I think it's enough to know there's a history.
Right. And so let's just talk a little bit, because I do remember from the first book, and it's been a while since I read it. So she got the museum for $1 because her friend owns the tea shop next door and just really wanted her. They wanted a partnership and to be besties and work together every day. So she was kind of hesitant in the beginning. Like, fast forward to now, how does she feel about owning this museum?
Now she's all in. The museum's expanded quite a bit, and it really suits her because she's a very creative person. She really loves the marketing side. And so there's a lot of fun stuff she can do with the museum. And she knows it's quirky. And she still feels a little bit insecure compared to her siblings of, I'm running a paranormal museum. But it's actually a lot of fun for her. And there's her museum is really focused more on historical paranormal objects and paranormal history. And so she gets to do a lot of research into that, which she finds fascinating. I mean, there are different kinds of paranormal museums. There are some that are just kind of gross shock value, catering to teenage boys sort of thing. And I'm not dissing that. And then there are some paranormal museums which are more focused on the ghost stories and the hauntings and kind of really, bringing you into it. So it's more about like the mystery, and they're not quite so horrifying. And hers falls more into the latter camp. And so I think she feels good about that. She feels like this actually is interesting history, especially, I mean, there is interesting paranormal history, like the spiritualist movement in the United States, which really kicked off after the Civil War, although it started before the Civil War. But after the Civil War, there were so many dead and so many people looking for answers and wanting to connect with their departed that this huge spiritualism movement grew up around it. And there's all sorts of, that's like the Ouija board, which we know today kind of came out of that. And there are earlier examples of Ouija boards, which she has in her imaginary museum, and other furniture and objects used by mediums from the 19th century. So I think she really does find it fascinating.
Very cool. So in the cast of characters that are normally in the series, how many did you actually bring with you to Sicily for this book?
I only brought 3, and I felt bad because there's a cat in the series, but there's just no way to bring the cat to Sicily. So I have another cat up here.
Yeah, no one's like, I'm going to a wedding, I'll be bringing the cat with me.
Yeah, to a foreign country. No. But another cat arrives in the book. So it's Maddie, Mason, and Maddie's mother are the 3 people that we bring over.
Okay. And this is, so all of these are in context on a recent visit to Sicily. Is that like your favorite place to vacation, or it just happened to be the most recent? Like, how'd you pick something?
Some friends of mine had moved to Sicily, and they invited my sister and I to come visit. So I thought, this is an opportunity. Nice. And it was beautiful. I have to say now it's one of my favorite places in Italy, because Italy's gotten very, very crowded. But we were there in March, and it wasn't very crowded at all. And it was just, I mean, it's just spectacular. Italy is amazing.
Did you make sure to eat lots of pasta?
Oh, I ate everything. I ate all the things.
Do you have a favorite pasta dish?
I just like a good tomato sauce on angel hair pasta. I think is my favorite. Although I do like eggplant parmesan. And I definitely came to love cannoli.
Cannoli, yeah, cannolis are good. So this is in Italy, and I imagine, I know this sounds obvious, but I would think everyone speaks Italian.
Yes.
Does she speak Italian? Like the character, like how does she get around that?
No, well, her sister speaks Italian fluently, and they're mostly spending time in, doing tourist stuff where people who work in the tourist industry speak English for the most part, even in Italy. And so when that's not the case, her sister's there to translate.
All right. Got it. And so, but going back to, so this is originally set in San Bernardet, California.
Yes.
So does she, I guess that's a fake town, right?
Yeah.
And
it's
so
based on Lodi.
Oh, Lodi. Okay. I'm not familiar with that. I was thinking it was Fresno for some reason.
It's not that far from it.
Okay. So small town, still California, still great weather.
A little hotter. Central California gets a bit hotter in the summer than the coast. But yeah, it's still California. It's rural, so you do get some cow smell. Central California is a lot flatter than other parts of California, and though they make amazing wine in Lodi, but it doesn't have the cachet of a Napa Valley, which has the gorgeous rolling hills and the oaks and the fog coming over the hills. And that's
all right. So, but a lot of farmland then.
Yeah.
Okay. Which some of them are wineries and some of them have cows.
Yes, which is which is Lodi, actually. There's a lot of farmers that grow grapevines, and they became wineries. And I like Lodi. It's very unpretentious compared to Napa, and it's just chill.
All right. So it did fit your idea of like the perfect small town for the cozies.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to be in a wine club where I could actually go to the winery and hang out like once a month and get my free glass of wine. And I've never been in an area where I could do that, but you can do that in Lodi, and Maddie does do that.
And you're a California native, obviously.
Yeah, I grew up in San Mateo, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area.
All right. And do you obviously miss it. A lot of the books are based in California.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in California, and I assumed I would die in California and retire there first and then die. But it just didn't work out that way. California especially the Bay Area got just so crowded. I was at the point where I didn't want to leave my condo between 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. because the traffic was awful. And that's too long of a rush hour.
Yeah.
And it's also expensive. So I moved to Colorado like so many Californians, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit, but I haven't gotten to the point where I want to play some mystery here. And most of the mysteries that I've written started when I was still living in California. So they're set in California. That's where they're staying.
Right. Yeah, I guess maybe if you pick another city and then afterwards you'll reminisce about Colorado and then
Yeah, exactly. Oh, beautiful Colorado. I miss it so much.
Right. The mysteries. Yeah, the mountains. So anyways, okay. So the castle. So I think that was like the best part for me. It's a castle wedding venue, right?
Yes.
And so is the castle haunted? Like, how is this?
It's not haunted. It's just, we were driving around Sicily and we saw this gorgeous castle that had been converted to a hotel right on the water. And unfortunately, we didn't get to go into it. So I went online and I was Googling it, and the place was amazing. And I thought, okay, I have to use that as, the wedding venue and where everybody's staying. And it was just a great place. So no, it's actually not haunted. Now I'm wondering why I didn't do that. That would have made more sense.
That's okay. I mean, let's just talk about the magic in this series and just your books in general. Like, how much or how little do you like to put into the book?
It depends. Like this series, I wanted it to be a more realistic portrayal of the paranormal. And for me, the paranormal has always been like that thing you see out of the corner of your eye. Then when you look at it dead on, it's not there. Or just that strange thing that you can't quite explain. And I think for most people, that's what the paranormal is. It's the stuff you can't explain, and you're not entirely sure if it was something weird or you're just confused. So for the Paranormal Museum series, that's the way I go. There's a paranormal museum. There's usually, in all the books, there's some sort of paranormal object subplot or that weaves through it. In the case of the Cannoli Caper, it's a cursed brooch. But even when there are ghosts, Maddie's always left wondering, almost always left wondering, wait, did I really see that or didn't I see that? Because that's the way the paranormal operates. I do have some witch mystery series, which are full on magic, where witches are casting spells and that sort of thing. But even with that, I try to keep it to what witches of today are actually doing and how they're working. I mean, the results of the spells in my books are much more spectacular than I've ever heard when I've talked to magical practitioners in California and elsewhere. They don't get quite those results, but it's the way they do it. I try to keep it as authentic as possible, because I think that authenticity gives a sense of verisimilitude or like reality to the book, or believability to the book. So it depends. And then I've got then I have mysteries which don't have any paranormal in them at all, and they're just straight comedy.
All right. What's your favorite to write?
I love writing comedy, especially like the last few years with COVID. Things have just been so kind of depressed and people have been so stressed out. And it's like, I personally need to laugh as a writer. And I think a lot of people enjoy just cutting loose and laughing as readers. That said, I've started a new, very, very paranormal witchy series, The Mystery School, which is coming out. The first book, Legacy of the Witch, is coming out at the end of April this year. And I'm working on the second book in that series now. And that's full on witchcraft and magic and spookiness.
Fun. fun. So back to this series. Sorry. So so it's not really like full on magical. It's just kind of those things that you question. So does her family, like, how do they feel about her paranormal thoughts and beliefs and sleeping and all that?
Her sister thinks it's kind of ridiculous. Her brother is like, yeah, whatever. Her mom actually enjoys it quite a bit, though because her mom's got a sense of the mystical in her as well, although she doesn't talk about it quite so much. Her mom keeps things pretty close to the vest, but her mom likes it quite a bit that Maddie's running the museum.
I mean, is her mom really involved in any of the crime solving in this book or in the past ones?
Yeah, she does get involved. Sometimes she's the one who pushes Maddie to solve the crimes. Her mother's very involved in her small community. She's in this organization called Ladies Aid, which is the sort of unspoken power of this small community is these older women who are just kind of taking care of business and making sure that, older people who can't get around are getting fed and that things are working right. The streets are paved and things are getting done. So when the Paranormal Museum came up for sale, it was like one of the few tourist attractions of this town. So her mother thought it was very important that it continue on. And she does, since her mother is so very involved, and since the ladies of Ladies Aid are so very involved, it's kind of a running gag of how very involved they are. They are frequently involved in the mysteries.
All right. And so she also has a ghost detecting cat that is still at the museum, right?
Yes, GD, the ghost detecting cat. He stays with the museum. Where the paranormal objects go, he goes. And yeah, they think when she inherited the cat along with the museum, and she was told, yes, the cat can see ghosts. And frequently cats will just stare at walls, like they see something, or stare at blank spots. You're like, what are you looking at? So I think that's probably where this reputation for being able to see ghosts came from. I don't know if cats can see ghosts or not, but it's a nice legend, and they do behave very weirdly in odd places, so why not?
And so the cat that she finds in Italy, does it have any paranormal powers?
I mean, it's a little bit... She's in a really dangerous situation, and the cat kind of helps her out and then just vanishes. So it's again, one of those things like, well, that was weird and convenient and coincidental, or synchronicity. So it's left for the reader to kind of decide what's going on with that.
All right. And do you feel like Maddie, because I know you have a lot of different characters, how much is Maddie like a mini Kirsten?
She is a little bit, in that I also came over from overseas and an overseas career, and she landed back in California and she floundered around, and then she ended up with this weird job that she didn't really expect. And I pretty much did the same thing.
Okay.
So I know how that feels.
Yeah, you're working in the paranormal world.
Yeah.
So her sidekicks, Harper and Adele, aren't with her. So is there anyone sort of sidekicking to help her accept her sister while she's in Sicily?
Her sister's sort of an unwilling sidekick in the whole thing, because she thinks it's all ridiculous. And so she's sort of an antagonist and a sidekick at the same time. Perfect.
Well, so let's talk about, what are your writing plans for 2024?
So I've got Legacy of the Witch coming out April 30th. That is my new mystery school series. And I'm trying to give readers the experience of going through an online mystery school with these books. It's a big mashup of sort of cozy mystery and paranormal women's fiction. And I don't know, I think they call it metaphysical fiction or maybe visionary fiction. And then I'm working on the sequel to that right now, Shadow of the Witch. I'm not sure when that's going to come out. I had a death in the family in February, and that kind of threw my writing schedule way off.
Yes.
But I mean, that's okay. So my plan is Legacy of the Witch, Shadow of the Witch, and then I want to work on a new tea and tarot book. So I have an idea for that. And I want to do a new Paranormal Museum book as well this year, because I want to bring Maddie's sister back to San Bernardet and let chaos ensue.
All right. So in Legacy of the Witch, is it the traditional PWF where she gains her powers at 40?
So it's not a traditional PWF in that it's a little more serious, but yeah, she's middle-aged. She's a widow. Her name's April. And she's trying to start her life over, and she discovers a body and all these strange things start happening. And she starts to realize that she has some inherited powers as well. It's based on it's set in Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania Dutch country. And there's a witchcraft tradition there, or a folk magic tradition there called, I'm going to mispronounce it, it's Braucherei.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
It's old German. Basically, it's sort of it's more folk healing than anything else, but it's also a lot of curse resisting and curse breaking. And I mean, I grew up, I remember my father was Pennsylvania Dutch, and he told me some stories about having like warts removed by his uncle who had the power. And he seemed to think it was, as an adult, he just kind of laughed it off. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then when I started researching it, I thought, wow, I realized there's this really rich tradition of folk magic in Pennsylvania, which I didn't know that much about. Now I know a lot more about it. So I thought that'd be interesting for readers to hear about it.
No, I think that's very cool. Like, I didn't even know until you mentioned it there was any magical elements at all to Sicily. Usually you just hear about food. And then,
which is amazing.
Yeah, and how the food's different in Sicily versus Northern Italy. And then same thing, I have no idea, like they even, I guess I don't know why I thought it was specific to only America that we believed in UFOs. But didn't realize it was Sicily too.
I mean, the story in Sicily is actually really weird. I use it in my the book is called Revenge of the Ziti. It's another sort of weird travel, make it short mystery. So there's a town called Cannoli Caper, I think. And again, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that. But it's a little beach town. And they started seeing all these weird lights over the water. And at the same time, they were having these weird fires in town. And like the scientists who came to study it actually watched an unplugged hairdryer burst into flames in front of him. So, and they never were able to explain it. And then it stopped. And then roughly 10 years later, it happened all over again. The lights, the fires, whatever. And again, they weren't really able to explain it. The best explanation they've been able to come up with is some sort of volcanic activity maybe caused some strange electromagnetic radiation in the area. Or UFOs. So again, you choose.
That's very cool. Anyways, so I guess what is that like, when something supernatural happens, like how do people, or in your opinion, decide between it's an alien versus it's something supernatural like a witch or a ghost?
Wow, that is a really deep question, because if you look, I was reading I think it was from the 1800s or maybe even the 1700s. A story, a man reported being kidnapped by these tall figures who did things to him, and and being brought back, and he attributed it to fairies. So throughout history, if you look at fairies and its history of fairy interactions with humans, or stories of fairy interactions with humans, they are weirdly close to the stories of alien interactions with humans, right down to the probing. I mean, it's very strange.
Very probing.
So, I mean, that's actually one of the things I play with in my Wits End series and my Doyle Witch series, which are both set in the same imaginary town of Doyle, California, which is based on Murphy's, California. But in the Wits End series, Susan Witsen runs a UFO themed B&B. And when weird things happen, they chalk it up to UFOs. Now, with the witches, they're in the same town. When weird things happen for them, it's fairies and witchcraft all the time. So the townspeople are seeing UFOs and the witches are seeing more supernatural stuff. And that's overlapping sometimes between the two series.
That's very cool. There should be a series about like where they're one and the same. Like all witches and werewolves are from a distant planet.
There you go.
That's how they ended up here.
You know what? There may well be a series like that. Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me.
That's cool. All right. So let's talk about where readers can find you. And for the people that so some of the audience likes contemporary only, some likes paranormal, and some like alien. So I guess tell them where to find you and which ones they should go to.
Okay, so if you go to my website, kirstenweiss.com, KirstenWeiss.com, and if you go to the drop-down thing at the top for books, you'll see all my different series. So my straight, no paranormal, no UFO series are Pytown, and, well, Tea and Tarot It's set in the Tea and Tarot series is set in a tea and tarot room, but there's really not a lot of magic. I mean, there's fortune telling going on, but it's not super woo. So I'd say Pie Town and probably Tea and Tarot, although it's got the tarot element. And then Paranormal Museum, again, it really straddles because you don't know if there's magic happening or not. It's totally up to the reader. The Wits End series is, again, a comedic cozy mystery set in a UFO themed B&B. I don't think there's no actual alien scene, but there's like a lot of alien talk and alien discussion going through those books. And then for witchcraft, there's my Doyle Witch series, The Witches of Doyle, set in the same town as my Wits End series. And my Riga Hayworth series, she's a metaphysical detective. That's a little more urban fantasy. That borders between like cozy mystery and urban fantasy, I'd say. And then my new series, I feel like I'm missing something. Anyways, so then my new Mystery School series, which is a spinoff of my Doyle Witch series.
All right. I mean, that's what happens when you're just writing all the time.
Yeah, I have too many series.
So many books. Very cool. All right. I will leave a link to your website in the description or the show notes wherever you're watching this. And thank you so much for being on and telling us all about your books.
Oh, thank you.